What if I told you that the same principles I use to turn a simple online bookstore into a trillion-dollar empire could help you build your own wealth in 2026? Most people think investing is about luck or timing the market, but the truth is, it's about having the right mindset, making bold decisions, and staying relentlessly focused on the long term. In this video, I'm revealing the 3 investing secrets that shaped my journey and how you can use them to transform your financial future. If you're ready to think bigger, act smarter, and invest like a visionary, you won't want to miss this. Long-term thinking is the foundation of every truly great investment, and it's a principle that has guided me from the very first days of Amazon. When I started out, the world was obsessed with quick wins and short-term gains. People wanted to know how fast you could turn a profit, how quickly you could flip a business, how soon you could cash out. But I saw things differently. I believe that the real value, the kind that endures, compounds, and changes the world, comes from looking far beyond the next quarter, the next year, or even the next decade. It comes from planting seeds today that will grow into forests tomorrow. When I launched Amazon, I made it clear to my team and to our investors that we were going to prioritize long-term market leadership over short-term profitability. That wasn't just a slogan, it was a commitment. It meant making decisions that might look foolish in the moment but would pay off in the future. We invested heavily in technology, in infrastructure and customer experience, sometimes at the expense of immediate profits. There were plenty of critics. Wall Street analysts questioned our strategy. Competitors mocked our razor-thin margins. Even some of our own employees wondered if we were moving too slowly, if we were missing out on the easy money. But I knew that if we stayed focused on the long game, if we kept building and innovating, the rewards would come. Long-term thinking is not just about patience, it's about vision. It's about seeing possibilities that others overlook because they're too busy chasing the next trend. It's about having the courage to invest in things that might not pay off for years or even decades. When we launched Amazon Web Services, for example, most people didn't understand what we were doing. Why would an online retailer build a cloud computing platform? The answer was simple. We saw a future where technology would empower businesses of all sizes to innovate faster and cheaper. We were willing to invest the time, the money, and the energy to make that future a reality. Today, AWS is one of the pillars of Amazon's success. But it took years of hard work and belief before it became obvious to everyone else. The same principle applies to personal investing. If you want to build real wealth, you have to resist the temptation to chase quick returns. You have to be willing to put your money into assets that will grow over time, whether that's stocks, real estate, or your own education and skills. You have to ignore the noise, the hype, the endless parade of hot tips and can't miss opportunities. Instead, focus on the fundamentals. Look for investments that have the potential to compound, to create value year after year, and most importantly, give them the time they need to grow. Long-term thinking also means being comfortable with uncertainty. The future is always unknown, and there will be setbacks along the way. At Amazon, we faced plenty of challenges: dot-com crashes, economic downturns, fierce competition. There were moments when it would have been easy to panic, to cut back, to play it safe, but we stayed true to our vision. We kept investing, kept innovating, kept pushing forward. That resilience, that willingness to weather the storms is what allowed us to emerge stronger every time. One of the most powerful aspects of long-term thinking is the way it changes your perspective on failure. When you're focused on the short term, every setback feels like a disaster. But when you're playing the long game, failures become learning opportunities. They're just steps on the path to something bigger. I've always encouraged my teams to experiment, to take risks, to try new things, even if it means failing along the way. Because every failure teaches you something valuable, and every lesson learned brings you closer to your ultimate goal. If you want to succeed as an investor, you have to adopt this mindset. Don't measure your progress by what happens in a week or a month. Think in years, in decades. Ask yourself, what kind of future am I building? What seeds am I planting today that will bear fruit tomorrow? Are my decisions aligned with my long-term vision, or am I just reacting to the latest headlines? The truth is, anyone can get lucky in the short term, but real wealth, real impact, comes from those who are willing to think big, act boldly, and wait patiently. That's the secret that has driven Amazon's growth from a tiny garage startup to a trillion-dollar empire. And it's the same secret that can help you build your own legacy if you have the courage to think long-term, to invest in the future, and to never stop believing in what's possible. Embracing calculated risks is at the heart of every breakthrough, every leap forward, and every fortune built. If you look at the story of Amazon, or really any story of lasting success, you will find a series of decisions that at the time looked anything but safe. The world is full of people who want guarantees, who want to know the outcome before they take the first step. But the truth is, if you wait for certainty, you'll be waiting forever. The future belongs to those who are willing to act in the face of uncertainty, to make bold moves when others hesitate, and to see opportunity where others see only risk. When I left my job on Wall Street to start Amazon, it wasn't because I was reckless. It was because I had done the math, weighed the odds, and decided that the risk of regret was far greater than the risk of failure. I asked myself, when I'm 80 years old, will I regret not having tried this? The answer was clear. I could live with failure, but I couldn't live with not knowing. That's what calculated risk is all about. It's not about gambling blindly. It's about understanding the stakes, preparing for the downside, and then having the courage to move forward anyway. Calculated risks are different from reckless risks. Reckless risks are taken without thought, without preparation, without a plan. Calculated risks, on the other hand, are rooted in research, analysis, and a clear understanding of both the potential rewards and the possible pitfalls. At Amazon, we never bet the company on a single roll of the dice. Instead, we made lots of small bets, learned from each one, and doubled down on the ones that worked. We built a culture where experimentation was encouraged, where failure was seen as a necessary part of innovation, and where the biggest risk was standing. Still, one of the most important lessons I've learned is that risk and reward are inseparable. If you want outsized returns, you have to be willing to take outsized risks. But those risks have to be smart, intentional, and aligned with your long-term vision. When we launched Amazon Prime, for example, it was a huge gamble. We were asking customers to pay upfront for the promise of faster shipping and better service. Many people thought it would never work. But we believed in the value we were offering, and we were willing to take the risk. Today, Prime is one of the cornerstones of our business, driving loyalty, growth, and innovation across the company. The same principle applies to investing. If you want to build real wealth, you can't just follow the crowd or stick to what's comfortable. You have to be willing to step outside your comfort zone, to invest in ideas, companies, or technologies that others might overlook. That doesn't mean chasing every trend or jumping on every bandwagon. It means doing your homework, understanding the fundamentals, and then making bold moves when the opportunity is right. It means being willing to look foolish in the short term and know hardier to be right in the long term. Calculated risk also means knowing how to manage failure. Not every bet will pay off, and that's okay. The key is to fail fast, learn quickly, and move on. At Amazon, we've had our share of failures, products that didn't catch on, ideas that didn't pan out, investments that didn't deliver, but each failure taught us something valuable, and each lesson made us stronger. The only real failure is the failure to try, the failure to learn, the failure to adapt. If you want to succeed as an investor, you have to develop a healthy relationship with risk. Don't be afraid to make bold moves, but make sure those moves are grounded in research, analysis, and a clear understanding of your goals. Diversify your investments so that no single failure can take you down. Be willing to pivot when the facts change, and never let fear paralyze you. Remember, the biggest risk is not taking any risk at all. In the end, embracing calculated risks is what separates the dreamers from the doers, the spectators from the builders, the ordinary from the extraordinary. It's what allowed Amazon to grow from a tiny online bookstore into a global powerhouse. And it's what will allow you to build your own fortune if you have the courage to act, the discipline to prepare, and the resilience to keep going no matter what. The world rewards those who are willing to take smart risks, to bet on themselves, and to keep moving forward, even when the outcome is uncertain. That's the real secret to building wealth, to creating value, and to living a life without regrets. Relentlessly learning from failures and adapting your strategy for continuous growth is not just a business. tactic. It's a philosophy that has shaped every chapter of my journey. If you look at the story of Amazon, you'll see a trail of experiments, some wildly successful and others that didn't work out as planned. But what you won't see is a fear of failure. In fact, I've always believed that failure and invention are inseparable twins. You cannot invent and pioneer if you cannot accept the possibility of failing. The only way to avoid failure is to do nothing new, and that's the surest path to irrelevance. From the earliest days, I encouraged my team to take bold bets, to try things that had never been done before, and to see every setback as a lesson rather than a defeat. When we launched the Fire Phone, it was a big swing, and it missed. The product didn't resonate with customers, and we had to write off hundreds of millions of dollars. But instead of hiding from that failure, we studied it. We asked ourselves tough questions. What did we get wrong? What did we learn about our customers, about the market, about ourselves? That willingness to confront failure head on, to extract every ounce of learning from it, is what allowed us to pivot and ultimately create successes like Alexa and Echo. Adaptation is the natural response to learning. The world is not static. Markets change, technology evolves, and customer needs shift. If you're not willing to adapt, you'll be left behind. At Amazon, we built mechanisms to ensure that we were always learning, always iterating, always improving. We held postmortems after every major project, not to assign blame, but to uncover insights. We celebrated the lessons learned from failed experiments just as much as the victories. That culture of continuous improvement became one of our greatest strengths. This mindset is just as critical for personal investing and wealth building. The market will humble you. There will be times when your investments don't perform as expected, when the economy takes a turn, or when a promising opportunity fizzles out. The key is not to avoid failure, but to learn from it. Analyze what went wrong. Was it a lack of research? Did you let emotions drive your decisions? Did you ignore warning signs or fail to adapt to new information? Every mistake is a chance to refine your strategy to become a smarter, more resilient investor. One of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself after a setback is, what would I do differently next time? That question turns failure into a stepping stone. It transforms regret into wisdom. It's the difference between those who stagnate and those who grow. I've always told my teams, be stubborn on vision, but flexible on details. Hold fast to your long-term goals, but be willing to change your approach as you learn more. That's how you keep moving forward, even when the path is uncertain. Continuous growth is not about never making mistakes. It's about never making the same mistake twice. It's about building a feedback loop into everything you do so that every experience, good or bad, makes you better. At Amazon, we institutionalized this with our working backwards process, starting with the customer and iterating until we got it right. We weren't afraid to scrap ideas that didn't work, to pivot when necessary, or to double down when we saw signs of success. That agility, that willingness to adapt, is what allowed us to outpace competitors and seize new opportunities. If you want to build wealth, you have to embrace this same philosophy. Don't let fear of failure paralyze you. Don't cling to a strategy that isn't working just because you're emotionally invested. Be honest with yourself. Seek out feedback. Surround yourself with people who will challenge your assumptions and help you see blind spots. And most importantly, keep learning. The world is changing faster than ever, and the only way to stay ahead is to keep growing, keep adapting, and keep moving forward. In the end, the most successful people aren't the ones who never fail. They're the ones who never stop learning. They turn every setback into a setup for a comeback. They adapt, they evolve, and they keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. That's the real secret to continuous growth in business, in investing, and in life. Embrace failure, learn relentlessly, and let every lesson fuel your next leap forward. That's how you build not just wealth, but wisdom. And that's how you create a future that's bigger and brighter than anything you can imagine.